Korean government allocates a comparatively large portion of the yearly budget to research, so there are ample opportunities to obtain funding. The tiered funding opportunities of the NRF for young, mid-age and so-called leading researchers makes it possible for researchers at any stage to obtain funding. In addition to government-funded research, it is also possible to obtain funding from the industry. However, this requires good connections to people there. As foreign researchers, part of our role is to build bridges between Korea and the rest of the world. In that sense, I have focused, and I'm still focusing, on bilateral or international research projects, particularly with Switzerland or the European Union, to make the most of my understanding of both cultures. In terms of advice I can give to international colleagues, I would like to emphasize that the effort made to learn the Korean language is well worth it. Being able to converse in Korean not only makes our lives here much easier, but also opens doors that would otherwise remain closed forever. Second, it is advisable to make an effort early on to get to know Korean researchers who work in similar areas. This not only helps to establish new research collaborations, but also improves your chances of getting NRF grants accepted, as grants are often reviewed by local experts. Last, I would like to express my gratitude for the efforts the NRF is undertaking to support the international community here. While many websites and systems are available only in Korean, the international team at the NRF is working very hard to rectify this and create a better research environment for all of us, independent of our nationality. Thank you.
A kind Korean professor at Yonsei University informed me about the NRF program, that I can apply to receive the fund as a PI. I mean, Principal Investigator. I found it as a great chance, not only for myself, but also for my husband. Both of us applied and were accepted. This was my first time to receive government fund as a PI. Writing the proposal was not that difficult, as English proposal was acceptable, but submitting the forms before and after acceptance were somehow difficult, as all were in Korean, and it was needed to be familiar with the NRF system somehow. I was lucky as a good friend of mine helped me in filling out the forms. After being accepted, as I didn't have any experience in filling out the NRF online forms, I got some advice from the Korean professor who had the experience on how to manage the NRF fund. The program is a great chance for foreigners, as it has lasted for 3 years. So I recommend it to everyone who is looking forward to working in Korea. Thank you to listen to my video, and stay safe.
And so my advice to internationals who are thinking about coming to Korea to do research as a colleague, I would suggest 2 things. 1, go to the conferences, go to the meetings, make a social impact and get to know other people. The social interactions are paramount here. And if you do not get your name out and interact with your colleagues, it's going to be more difficult. And the second one is similar. Work with your colleagues within your universities. They're a great help, and it will help you prepare your grants and know what to submit and what to do in the different administrative duties that you may have. And so related with this, related with getting grants, my suggestion is to engage your Korean students. It's always best to have students in your lab who can support you and help you in preparation of the application process, which is best done in Korean. I found that if my students help me and translate the grants into Korean, I've been more successful. And this is one of the reasons that I limit my international membership in my lab to about 30%, because I don't want to burden my Korean students more. As I mentioned, funding is a limitation. I would love to have more students. However, as I said, I'm working with Younger Gen, and every lab is struggling to get funding, I'm sure. So engage your students, have them help you, and look for different funding opportunities. One of these is the National Science and Information Technology Service, NTIS website, where the different grants are compiled and they list all of them that are currently available. I do this about once every 2 weeks with one of my students, and so we go there and we look at all the different grants that have been announced in the last couple of weeks, and we try to decide which ones best fit my lab. So in total, I apply for many grants a year, and I'm hopeful that I'll get a couple more this year as well. Finally, I would ask if you're thinking about coming here, to engage your colleagues in your departments to help you with the applications. Together with my students and the colleagues, I discuss the ideas and develop them, but I end up putting most of the writing, as I mentioned, onto the shoulders of my students. This is something I honestly dislike as a professor, one of the things that I struggle with here in Korea. However, I would say that, again, if you're thinking about coming here, having someone help you prepare your grants in Korean would be a great thing to do. Many people are successful writing it in English, but to increase your odds, I would say try to get it in Korean. So I would say to any international who might be interested in coming to Korea, come give it a chance. Understand that there are some difficulties, but it's a beautiful country. It's a wonderful place, and I would say come and help us make it a better place. They want me to wave.
Well, the Korean research environment offers many opportunities, mainly due to the higher investment in research at the national level as a fraction of the GDP compared to many other countries, including most European ones, including also Italy, my native country. However, Korea is also extremely competitive. So as a consequence, my advice to an international colleague coming to Korea would be to keep focused on the quality and quantity of his or her production. In particular, keep an eye on the bibliometric parameters, such as the high impact factor papers, the number of citations, and also the proof of research leadership, which in Korea is mostly identified with corresponding authorship. Well, it's difficult to generalize, probably due to the many variables at play. The personal experience of a single research person cannot be generalized. Anyway, I would stress that in order to get one's proposal approved, it is very important to first start with smaller grants and aim at bigger ones only after developing a robust network of collaborators and an abundant literature of public results, since the past productivity will play a crucial role in the final decision. Also, probably at the beginning of one stay, in order to gain experience, it is advisable to submit joint proposals with local researchers and then try and go alone. In my experience, it's also quite common, even for very experienced Korean researchers, to get their proposal rejected. In this case, every failure is considered as an opportunity to refine the proposal, adding additional results and idea. For instance, in the case of joint proposals, adding collaborators with a robust set of published results can strengthen the project. In this sense, I had the opportunity to appreciate the extreme care for detail reached by some proposals prepared by some of my Korean collaborators. This year I was the principal investigator of the grant proposal for the Center of Quantum Spacetime, SeaQuest, a 9-year research institute involving some of my colleagues in Sogang University. Such institute had already been funded in the past under a different Korean PI, so it was the continuation of an older project. Our proposal was eventually approved by NRF, but we had already tried unsuccessfully several times with the same PI of the first funded project. I would not be able to say if the fact that this time the principal investigator was a foreigner played any role. However, our proposal was the result of a collective effort that grew and improved over the years. Every time we modified the proposal with the goal of strengthening it in every single section. I guess that this played an important role in the final evaluation. As a last consideration, in my experience, the approval rate for a specific area of research can have strong fluctuations from one year to another. So a valid proposal can be rejected simply because of bad timing. This is another reason why it can be worth revising and resubmitting a proposal after rejection. So thank you for listening. Korea is becoming more and more internationalized. Since I came to Korea, the number of foreign researchers has grown, and it's becoming more and more welcoming to foreigners. So I wish to all the people who wanted to come to Korea good work, and I'm quite sure that in the future foreign researchers will be more and more successful in Korea. Okay, thank you and goodbye.